Harold Frederick Shipman. Fred Shipman, as he was known to his friends, was an English general practitioner who is thought to be one of the most prolific serial killers in history. Shipman was convicted guilty of the murders of 15 people in his care on January 31, 2000. He was condemned to life in jail with the intent of never being freed. Linda Reynolds of the Brook Surgery in Hyde raised concerns about the high fatality rate among Shipman's patients to John Pollard, the coroner for the South Manchester district, in March 1998. She was particularly worried about the enormous number of cremation documents he required countersigned for older women. The inquiry was concluded on April 17 when police were unable to discover sufficient evidence to press charges. The Greater Manchester Police were later criticised by the Shipman inquiry for deploying inexperienced officers to the case. Shipman killed 3 additional persons after the inquiry was completed. Taxi driver John Shaw informed authorities in August that he suspected Shipman of killing 21 patients. As many of the elderly clients he took to the hospital died in the care of Shipman even though they were in good health. Kathleen Grundy, Shipman's last victim, was discovered dead at her house on June 24, 1998. He was the last person to see her alive, and he later signed her death certificate, listing old age as the cause of death. When solicitor Brian Burgess notified Grundy's daughter, lawyer Angela Woodruff, that a will had been drafted, supposedly by her mother, with suspicions regarding its legitimacy, she grew alarmed. Woodruff and her children were left out of the bequest, while Shipman received £386,000. Woodruff went to the cops on Burgess's advice, and they started an inquiry. Grundy's corpse was unearthed, and traces of diamorphine, heroin, a pain reliever commonly used in terminal cancer patients, were discovered. Shipman stated that Grundy was an addict and showed them remarks in his computerized medical diary to that effect. However, an inspection of his computer revealed that the statements were created after her death. Shipman was apprehended on September 7, 1998, and it was discovered that he owned a Brother typewriter similar to the one used to compose the fraudulent will. Shipman created the will, according to Prescription for Murder, a 2000 book by writers Brian Whittle and Jean Ritchie, because he didn't want to be found. His life was out of control, or he meant to retire at 55 and leave the UK. Other fatalities were probed by the police. 15 specimen instances had been certified and investigated by Shipman. They identified a pattern of his giving individuals deadly amounts of diamorphine, signing their death certificates, and then altering medical records to make it appear like they were sick. Shipman's trial began at Preston Crown Court on 5 October 1999. He was charged with the murders of 15 women by lethal injections of diamorphine, all between 1995 and 1998. The alleged fabrication of Grundy's will was used as a reason by Shipman's legal representation, who attempted unsuccessfully to have the Grundy case tried separately from the others. After 6 days of deliberation, the jury convicted Shipman guilty of 15 counts of murder and 1 count of forgery on January 31, 2000. Shipman was sentenced to life in prison on all 15 charges of murder, with the suggestion that he never be freed, to be served concurrently with a 4-year term for forging Grundy's will. Shipman was struck off by the General Medical Council on February 11, 11 days after his conviction, GMC. Just months before British government politicians lost their ability to set minimum sentences for inmates, Home Secretary David Blunkett approved the judge's entire life tariff 2 years later. Despite the fact that authorities might have pursued many more accusations, they decided that a fair trial would be difficult due to the massive media attention following the previous trial. Furthermore, the 15 life sentences previously handed down negated the need for further legal action. During his time in prison, Shipman developed acquaintances with fellow serial murderer Peter Moore. Shipman maintained his innocence throughout the trial, denying the scientific evidence against him. He never spoke out about his conduct in public. Primrose Shipman, Shipman's wife, insisted in her husband's innocence even after his conviction. Shipman is the only doctor ever found guilty of murdering his patients in the history of British medicine. In 1957, John Bodkin Adams was accused with murdering a patient amid allegations that he had killed dozens more over a 10-year period and probably provided the role model for Shipman, but he was acquitted. According to historian Pamela Cullen, there was no push to explore the problems in the British court system until the Shipman case because of Adams' acquittal. On the eve of his 58th birthday, Shipman hung himself in his cell at Ham Prison, Wakefield at 6:20 a.m. At 8:10 a.m., he was pronounced dead. According to a statement from Her Majesty's Prison Service, he hung himself from his cell window bars using his bedclothes. 36. Shipman's corpse was brought to the Medico-Legal Centre's morgue for a post-mortem examination after he died. After an inquiry was begun and delayed, West Yorkshire coroner David Hinchliffe ultimately returned the remains to his family.